this podcast one time, but if you have the gumption just to walk up with
I've got
a
it,
few
man.
hundred people and just say, you know what, cut a promo for my podcast, I will assume that you have good moxie. I will assume that the Next Step Fantasy Football Podcast is a good one. I haven't heard a minute of it, but I'm assuming it's great.
Check
and I
us
can't
out.
wait to listen to it.
Check us out.
Cheers, man. Good luck out there.
Welcome to the Next Step Fantasy Football Podcast, where we help you take the next step in your fantasy journey. Here's your host, Jake.
Welcome back to the Next Step Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Jake, once again joined by my friend Jordan. Jordan, how you doing?
Great. We're off schedule. Off schedule. this week.
5 o'clock right
That's
now.
all right. 5 o'clock on a Tuesday.
We even said that we weren't even going to do anything this week.
Yeah. Well, hey, we're gonna squeeze one in there, sneak an episode in. We got drafts to break down.
We've done a few of them, and we kind of been slacking on actually breaking them down. So we thought we might as well. We had a little time.
Yeah.
Your boy had the day off, so I was like, "Hey, Jordan, got any time?" And of course, he found time for this because it's super important to him, right, Jordan?
You got that right. You got that right, Jake.
Megan's in the
Let's
chat.
talk.
Megan's in the chat on YouTube. On YouTube right now, she says, "Thank God football is back." Thank God. We had our first full preseason week. No
Jake
one
loves preseason.
I love preseason. I like it more than the regular season.
Wow. That's a hot take.
I only
That's
play
a hot take.
preseason fantasy football.
And then after that, you just kind of sign off, right?
Yeah,
For the
yeah.
year? Yeah. Who
Yeah,
cares?
I just, I'm just like, it doesn't even matter. Who cares that we put years into this? Let's just be done. Right, Jordan?
Yeah, you got that right. You get it. We're on the same page, Jake.
I'm glad we discussed it. All right.
Yep.
Jordan, before we get into these leagues, why don't you talk about the news? Because we got some
Yeah,
stuff.
Some interesting news. So we've been following the Brandon Ayuk saga. Rumors are now that the Steelers and the 49ers have a deal in place. Contracts are in place. I think the 49ers just need to sign off on it. They just need to say it's okay. Rumor also has it that the 49ers do have an offer on the table for Ayuk as well that he could accept. So it seems like there's still some things to unpack here, but we're closer to a deal than we've ever been
Yeah.
to Ayuk to the Steelers. So I'm sure that I'm sure we'll hear that news in the next couple of days. That's my guess.
Yeah, that's probably safe to say, right? If he's being traded, we talked about it last week, that's probably the desired spot of the teams that have been connected to him, right?
Correct. Versus like the Patriots or the Browns, I think we were the other ones that were
Yeah.
getting floated around. So I agree.
Great. Anything else?
JJ McCarthy.
Yes.
JJ McCarthy needs knee surgery. So, poor Vikings.
We
Poor
don't
JJ.
love the injury. We're so sorry. We hope he gets better. But as Packer fans, it's just hilarious.
No. Jake, as Packer fans, I'd rather have JJ McCarthy this year throwing the ball around.
Then Sam Darnold,
Yeah.
you're out of your mind.
I think JJ McCarthy's going to have a steeper learning curve. Anyway, that's not important. Not important to this discussion.
Apparently not.
JJ needs surgery. I think jury's still out on whether they're going to do one type of knee surgery that'll let him be back for 4 to 6 or like after a handful of weeks, or he might miss the whole season.
Yeah.
So then, do you have other thoughts?
No, we're good.
Other items on the list. Jamar Chase holding out a training camp, so we'll keep an eye on that one.
Yeah,
He's
keep
not
an eye on that.
practicing.
That's not what you
So-
want to hear.
Not what you want to hear. Jamar Chase, I feel like they'll get a deal done. It's kind of like
Oh,
CeeDee
yeah.
Lamb. It's just kind of drama there. I think they'll get a deal done. But other injuries, Hollywood Brown injured his shoulder in the first preseason game. Originally, they said not sure what it's going to be. I just looked at the notes here, and the latest news, and they said 4 to 6 weeks. So no Rashee Rice, potentially, or I guess Rashee Rice has no news about what he's going to miss. Hollywood Brown, now injured. I'm telling you, I like Xavier Worthy. He's bumping up the list.
Oh,
for
he's
me.
definitely got to go up the list a little.
Yep.
I mean,
And
why
then Chase
wouldn't he?
Claypool on IR. Go Bills. Haha.
Well, Jahmyr Gibbs also got hurt.
Jahmyr Gibbs got hurt.
Yes, he pulled his hammy. So we're sitting on that
Oh,
kind of news.
there was other things like that too. Marshawn Lloyd pulled his hammy. I'm not reporting on things unless I got like
Concrete timelines.
you need surgery. No, not even timeline. Just like you need surgery or things like that, or you're on RIR. But yes, a lot of that kind of stuff that's popping up.
I'm sure he'll be all right.
Yeah,
I'm sure
I hope
that.
so.
Well, I hope so too. I'm sure that, like, you know, hopefully, without knowing too much so far, that, you know, these injuries happen and things change, man. Life changes on these guys, and you hurt your leg, you'll be fine. I'm just being really optimistic.
Yeah,
Because you hear soft tissue and you're like, oh god.
yeah, and it's so early, and I'm like, oh
It is.
no.
It's really, really early.
Yeah.
It's really early.
And then they do weird stuff too. They'll like put people on IR.
Yep.
Like during this time, even though they have every intention of starting week 1. This is a hard time to pin down player injuries, but we'll see.
You are right. You are right. It is early. Can't make any decisions right now, right? But they can't.
In my draft?
I mean, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, are you not drafting Jahmyr Gibbs now?
No. Any
Yeah,
of those
that's
soft
what I
tissue
meant.
ones,
That's what I
anything,
meant.
unless
Sorry.
I got like news that you like need surgery or something, I'm
Full
still
steam ahead.
looking at him. Yep.
All right. Great.
That's it, Jake. That's what I
All
got
right.
for news.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, Jordan. Thanks for putting in the effort for that. Jake Jordan's the best at getting news. He heads the graphic department. He has the graphic department. He's just, I don't know what we would do without him.
Mm-hmm.
What would we do without you, Jordan?
I don't know, man. No, you would have no news. You'd have to look it up.
Honestly, wouldn't even be a podcast without you.
Wouldn't even look up the news.
There would just be no news. So, all right, enough of kissing Jordan's butt. So we have 2 leagues we're going to kind of go over today. So if you wanted to be a part of these, we just filled the August league. We're not going to go over that one, but on our Facebook page we post all the time. I think we posted 6 or 7 leagues so far, and they've all filled this summer. So it's been fun. Yeah, it's been good. So this one, full transparency, Jordan, we're going to talk about an auction league here that we did back in June. So it's been a month and a half, 2 months. We're going to talk about what went well, what did not go well, what the teams look like. You know, we're still learning how to host drafts and all that sort of thing. Jordan, while I'm talking, Megan in the chat asked, "Do you guys have a Patreon link? Do you have that anywhere on your? Oh, you're on your wife's computer right now."
Correct. Yeah.
All right, so I'll have Jordan talk, and then I can post that in the chat.
Okay, you post the link,
Thank
Jake.
you.
Let me talk about the auction draft. So in June as Jake mentioned, we've been trying a bunch of different leagues, rather than just those straightforward redrafts where we've been kind of folding in some of these more unique types of drafts. I think a lot of folks have really enjoyed that, us as well too. So in June it was an auction draft, and so I'll just a little bit of background of just how that works and how that worked for us. And then we'll get into like the actual players. So 10-team league in that June auction league, and how it works is we all had $200 metaphorical dollars to space cash to spend on players.
Space cash.
And rather than going in like an order and drafting players, you went in that order and you nominated a player. So you would start and you would say someone like Christian McCaffrey, right? So you nominate Christian McCaffrey. And then everyone got to use their metaphorical space cash and bid or auction a price. And
Their
so
metaphorical
I'm gonna spend,
space cash.
Yeah, I'm going to spend $40 on Christian McCaffrey. And then someone would say 41, someone would say 46. And you just keep going until you kind of outbid everyone else around you, right? And so whoever has the winning amount of winning bid gets the player. That is the premise there of the auction draft. And so we went through that and we filled out our roster. Our league here we had was, like I said, 10 players, 10 teams, super flex. So that flex spot, one of the flex spots that we had, you could put a quarterback in, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, and then a deep bench. And so we went through that and we're doing that. So I know Jake is about to post a link here, and then I think he has a graphic to share too. For those
Here, I can bring it up.
Yep, for those of you who are watching on YouTube. But we'll kind of talk through it as well. So want to call out some of the unique things that happened, some of the teams and how things flowed. So if folks are doing auction drafts and things like that, or are interested in auction drafts, this is a good listen. And we're happy to talk about some of the things that we noticed. Because for me, to be totally honest, this was my first auction draft I had ever done.
Yeah, I think it's important that we kind of mention here what did we do wrong here? Because we decided, like you mentioned, that we were gonna. Did you mention? I'm sorry, I was in the middle of doing all this.
No, right.
Did you mention the fact that we did it as a slow draft? Did you mention that? I'm sorry.
I did not, but that's
Okay,
a great call. Great call.
So we did a slow draft, a slow auction draft. So typically you do this in one night, right? And you would bid, and you'd have a minute to bid, just like your typical draft. We decided as a group, we put polls up, let's do a slow draft. So in this case, you had 8 hours to make your pick, and you had 1 hour to nominate somebody. Pros and cons of this. Pro, it took a month. That's a pro for me. I like the fact that it went slower, and you get to extend the fun of it, right? It was, I think, Jordan, we can agree, it was the wrong decision.
Yeah.
Because what would happen? What ended up happening though was because you had these 8 hours, where most of us here are adults, we're working, and I have the high bid on. For example, we're looking at the graphic right now. So, Yurko, that's Adam, has the high bid on Josh Allen for 7 hours. And then someone would be on their phone. It'd be 3:30 in the afternoon when we're all working. And they'd bid 2 seconds right before it was supposed to bid, and then they'd get him. So pretty much if you weren't glued to your phone, you didn't get the guy you thought you might have. So Joey, who is in the league in the chat here, says the slow auction draft was excruciating. So... live and learn.
Lesson learned.
Lesson
learned. I wouldn't do it again.
When we do that for next year, it's definitely not going to be that. Yep. I think that it just isn't the correct format, and I think that you might be able to see some of the problems there when we look at it here, because you'll see like, oh man, maybe we can look at Yurko right now. His running backs ended up being James Conner and Aaron Jones. I know for a fact Adam bid on other guys, right? But he didn't get him because he was at football practice or he was working his job. So just take that just have that in the back of your head. We did this wrong. This is not the correct way to do this. I will say I think everyone's team turned out okay.
Agreed. I think the other side of this that I'll argue is, I think an auction draft naturally balances itself. Right, because everyone has the same amount of money to spend, and so we'll see that in some of these teams here, as we're looking across it, is that you might have been able to get a player, you might have been able to spend a player, and one of my key takeaways for myself was like, don't get too attached to any individual player, right? Because you'll overspend, and I think that was a theme for at least for me, as I was like, oh, I really want this guy, and then I would like, be in it, and I would be bidding, and I would be like doing it, and then I would overspend. Or someone would, outbid me, but we would overspend on a player like that. I think a really good example of this, Jake, and I'll kind of dive into these players, is actually between me and you.
Yeah.
Was Williams.
Yeah.
And when he got nominated, that was a player I was like, oh, you know what? I'd be kind of interested in having on my team. And so we started going back and forth. Pretty soon, Jake and I are like, 10 seconds before this thing is done. And him and I are just like spamming it back and forth. And I had no intention of spending over $30 on Kyren Williams. Pretty soon the number got to like 35, and I was like, yeah, 36. And Jake was like, yeah, 37. Then I let him have it, and Jake's like, I didn't want him for 37.
Nope.
But like, you just,
I was mad. I mean, that's a solid amount of your roster,
Yeah, it's a huge percentage, yeah.
And then one last thing before we get into just kind of what people's teams look like. And Jordan, you can speak on this here. Jordan was getting really frustrated because most of us had half our starters, and he didn't have anyone. That was a busy week.
I was really late to the party.
It was busy for you.
Super late to the party.
And but then you were texting me, and you were upset. You're right. You're like, this sucks. This
it's like, I can't be on. What's going on? Yeah.
And then you ended up with probably one of the best teams because people ran out of money. So so now we're talking general about auction leagues, right? If you're doing them, a strategy is to sit back, let people spend money, because people spent money fast, right? Let's look at where'd Christian McCaffrey go? Do you have it here, Jordan? Do you see?
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey went to for 58.
For 58, right?
Player. Yep.
Versus, I'm sorry, I'm zooming. I'm not zoomed in far enough. But versus other running backs that went for a lot less. I mean, we got James Cook went for, is that 12?
James Cook went for 10.
10, yeah.
Yeah, Rachaad White went for 18.
So people really bid high and then ran out of money, and then Jordan just came in. So,
Yeah, I would say that was one of the trends, Jake, that I really wanted to call out.
Yeah.
So overspending early,
Yeah.
and I'm sure there's definitely strategies here, right? Like capture those players, those key players. So looking at the team Bo knows, yeah, you have it here on the screen. Josh Allen for 50, Patrick Mahomes for 50, CeeDee Lamb for 45. That's $145 of the $200 you have to spend
On 3 guys.
just on 3 guys.
And then Adams
Other
sat
teams-
back from there, you know.
Yep, and then other teams that did it, the Cartman team did it for Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Breece Hall. That was $144 just between those 3 players. The Outsiders had Bijan, Justin Jefferson, Joe Burrow, and Anthony Richardson. That was $184 between 4 players. And so there were teams that had that strategy where they said early, and those were guys that were, those first 20 people that were, the first 20 guys that were nominated.
Yeah.
They were, sucking them up. And then had to sit and wait, and then they had to spend $1 on players or $2 on players,
Which was fine, if we're being honest.
Yeah, and then that's when my team really started to come together. Was when guys were getting nominated, and I could say I have 150 of my dollars left, and I could put any amount of money on it, and other people couldn't. And so really that strategy of do you spend early and get the top tier marquee players, or do you sit back like I ended up doing, wait, and then you have all of this money to spend on different players. So I think when I look at the teams, the teams that were the most balanced across, well, I would put, the most running back twos, most wide receiver twos, like that kind of tier, were the ones who only spent $40 or more on a single player.
Yep.
Those were my team. That was Jake, actually. Or it was Don, whose team name is Jake's favorite team, so we talked about it. Shout out, Don.
I will want to quickly apologize for anyone watching on YouTube right now. It was pretty low. This graphic was a little low res, so I kind of moving it around and zooming in, and I'm sorry if it's hard on the eyes, but it is what it is.
We love it. We love it, Jake.
So let's highlight like a team like Jake's favorite team, Don. So they'll be right in the middle of your screen. So he went and got here. I'm gonna zoom everyone in here. So he went and got CJ Stroud, and you can tell he went 51, right, pretty high. I noticed he also went to double tight end. If you see that, went Travis Kelce and Sam Laporta.
Two, yeah.
Yep. And then you this is just a team that's pretty balanced, right? Like you mentioned, you get decent running backs at James Cook, Rashad White. They're low end wide or running back ones, high end or right around running back twos.
Yeah, what you want.
You get Garrett Wilson. You get a stinky good pick at Christian Kirk at 11, right? Zay Flowers. And then you're taking lower guys such as Tyler Lockett or Xavier Worthy, which looks good now, right?
Yeah, sure does.
So I mean that sort of thing, really like that. I like that. Trying to look. Trade Ricky, I think in a different situation, he went quarterback really late, so he ended up in a superflex having Caleb Williams and Brock Purdy, which is a bit of a gamble, I would say, right? Because you're starting a rookie rookie quarterback.
Yeah, but it's Caleb Williams. Of the rookie quarterbacks, you're probably fine. But yeah, his backup there is Derek Carr, and I don't love that.
Love that, no. But when you wait on quarterbacks in super flex, right? Then all of a sudden you're getting Jahmyr Gibbs, you're getting Puka, you're getting Devon Achane, you're getting Chris Olave, Trey McBride. Like these are all guys going in the first 3 rounds of redraft leagues, and he was able to get all of them. So his strategy was to forego the money people are spending on quarterbacks, take QB2 numbers pretty much everywhere. Brock Purdy actually was pretty good last year, but and then beef up everywhere else, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And the other strategy here was the bench spending.
Yes.
And so kind of what ended up happening in our league specifically is that most teams ended up just spending like $1 on their.
And that's
to a point where
another
where no one had any money to spend except for the guy they nominated. So we would nominate them and they would win because no one could outspend them.
Yeah.
And that's where I think, like my team ended up really coming together was in the bench because I had money left over.
Jordan, yours will be right in the middle of the screen here if you're watching on YouTube.
Perfect. Yeah. So I was spending, couple bucks here, couple bucks there. It's like $3, $4. And then there were some guys that were filling out bench spots like Najee Harris. And I was like, I'm going all in. that only ended up being $8
Yeah.
for me. So that was me sitting back and waiting and having money left over. Let me fill out my bench with guys like DK Metcalf, Najee Harris.
I mean, Jordan, you get $6 for Zamir White, $8 for Najee, DeAndre Swift for $9, Joe Mixon for $7, which is less than a CMC was.
Correct.
You
All
know,
my
you
running
see what I'm
backs
saying?
combined, less than CMC. And again, I'm not saying that CMC is obviously that top tier start every single week, and I'm going to have to play the matchups a little bit closer and things like that. But that is, I think, one of those strategies when we're looking at that and calling them out. I think the other thing that became interesting quick was quarterback spending.
Yeah.
There were these top tier running backs, those top tier wide receivers, and I expected those guys to have big money around them. But the quarterbacks kind of stayed at a pretty elevated price the entire time. And I think it's because of that super flex. So we're even talking about guys like Caleb Williams went for 22, Brock Purdy went for 29, multiple guys went for over 50. And then we didn't start getting until into the lower teens.
Yeah.
Until we hit guys like Aaron Rodgers for 5. Deshaun Watson for 5. Will Levis for 7 as a starter. Otherwise, most were above 20. Jordan Love, 28.
The quarterback stayed at high for sure.
Yeah.
I do want to, shout out a few more teams. I don't know. Our good friend Joey kind of went an elite player everywhere, right? So he went Joe Burrow, spent money there. Got Bijan, spent money there. Got Justin Jefferson, spent money there, and then kind of ended up waiting, right? Got Raheem Mostert at a pretty good deal. Not sure how I feel about Raheem Mostert as my running back too, because then the backup to that, right? Like his backups right now are Jerome Ford, Marshawn Lloyd, Kendall Miller, Ty Chandler. So I mean the running backs are definitely weaker, but then he's really strong at those receivers, right?
Yeah. Totally agree with that. So anyway, very, very fascinating. I really enjoyed doing the auction draft.
Yeah, it was fun.
The style, the idea of an auction draft was very fun. I think, learning from the past, I think next time I would say we're doing it all in one night. And that way I think you can, the speed is one thing, but also a little bit more of that back and forth. Everyone is in play at all times versus a slow draft of doing it.
I think the best way to highlight this is on my team, I got Devontae Adams for 19 and then proceeded to get DJ Moore for 9 and Cooper Kupp for 9. So, and I like Cooper Kupp and DJ Moore more than both of them. Or both more than Devontae Adams for the most part. So,
yeah, and then you got, your bench guys too. Calvin Ridley for 3, Devontae Smith for 6, Brian Thomas for 1, but all of your wide receivers.
Oh yeah, we went elite.
Yeah,
are
excellent.
And we can. I want to point out. I just want to make sure I kind of mention pretty much everybody's team here. I like the mighty Cartman. Goes and gets Breece Hall, spends the money there, spends the money at Tyreek Hill and Jamar Chase. Right, gets a really good running back too. I think for this year, especially in redraft, and Isaiah Pacheco, he's a really, in my opinion, a very safe running back this year, who will give you more numbers than you're expecting. But then you sacrifice it. You have Bryce Young going in, as your running back too, which, let's be honest, we don't love, right?
Yeah, because you only had $1 to spend.
That's the strategy. It's you saying I'm going elite everywhere else, right? So he's, for the most part, going to have better receivers than everyone else, right? Or, you're expecting your receivers and running backs to offset the fact that you have Bryce Young at your quarterback too, right?
Yep. Jake, I think the last thing I want to ask you about is the nomination process in this league very much was kind of like the next best.
Yeah.
So we went out of turn just a few times where it was like, all right, it's a positional thing, and now all of a sudden we have a tight end. But for the most part, we were kind of nominating it's like Christian McCaffrey's first, and then we kind of the next guy, it's like, all right, CeeDee Lamb's the next one. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that is, you could do it all again? Would you have nominated kind of the next best player, or would you have looked to try and
I didn't do that a few times. I know Christian Kirk was my first nomination. Because
so you kind of went out of order.
Yeah, my thought was, hey, people are overspending for receivers right now, And I will say, if I told you I got DJ Moore for 9, Terry McLaurin went for 9. I'm looking at just single digits, guys. Zay Flowers went for 9. Stephon Diggs went for single digits. Cooper Kupp.
No, Zay Flowers went for 4. Stephon Diggs.
Okay. So my strategy was to throw Tyreek Hill just went for 56. I'm throwing Christian Kirk out there hoping someone will spend double digits. And that's what happened. Because you want your opponent to spend money. While I do like Christian Kirk on Don's team, he overspent compared to the other guys, right?
Yeah, because later on, right? I hear what you're saying. Like Jalen Waddle also went for 13. I'd rather have Jalen Waddle for 13. You know, and So I think that's if I doing this again, I would nominate with a little more randomness.
Yep.
Not randomness, but a little bit more of that strategy where I'm like, this is a player I don't want.
Mm-hmm.
So someone else go spend money on it. People are spending big money on wide receivers. And then for me, too, the other thing I learned is just the patience. I got impatient. I got nervous that I wasn't getting anyone on my team. I was nervous that I missed out on a couple timing, and I should have been more patient and kept a more positive attitude towards it.
You really should have more of a positive attitude.
My roster.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to be patient. You never know what the future holds, Jordan.
Yep.
You never know. All right, guys. So that's going to be the auction league. Hope that if you joined us in that league that you had fun with it. Like I said, we're going to kind of do things a little differently next year, but we appreciate you guys being a part of it. And let's make it a good one, right? We're going to make it a fun one. So moving on, we're going to do, then in July, we went and did a best ball league. So to explain for anyone who doesn't know what a best ball league is, you draft your team, right? Typically, it's pretty close to a redraft league, right? You just draft your team, and then you don't do anything with it the rest of the season. Kind of itches that draft itch you get, right? So pretty much whoever's on your roster, that's on your roster for the rest of the year. You don't pick up anyone, you don't add or you don't drop anyone. And what it does is if I'm matched up against Jordan, it takes, after week 1 is done, it just takes whoever scored the most points of your quarterback. So if I have Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, if Joe Burrow had more points that week, he's my starter. And it just takes the most points at each position, and then you match up against each other, right? So I'm going to kind of point out here what we did here. So we just drafted normal. I kind of enjoy them because you just kind of can just forget about them afterwards, and plus you get to draft, and that's always fun.
We love drafting here.
I do love a good draft. I'm going to be honest. Yeah. Again, want to apologize for having to move this around, but it is what it is. Jordan, would you mind telling the people about what the settings were for this? Do you have it up?
I might.
It wasn't a super flex, right? No, it wasn't. Okay. The big thing is that it was just a normal, regular draft. The big pick here, David went and took CeeDee Lamb with the first pick.
I love it.
He loves it. Why do you love it?
Because no player has ever repeated as the number 1 player in fantasy football back-to-back years. History is not on the side of Christian McCaffrey doing it again.
Is history on the side of the guy who currently isn't playing?
I'm just saying it's the right call not to pick the same guy again. And CeeDee Lamb's going to play.
Yeah, he will play. So
I'm not going to sit out, but you just have to make a deal.
Let's just quickly go over what these first 2 rounds look like. So first pick went CeeDee Lamb, then Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill. So they're pretty basic stuff. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Bijan goes. I went Amon-Ra St. Brown with mine. You were right next to me, went Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, A.J. Brown. So a pretty basic. I mean, I'm going to keep going here because it is all pretty basic if I'm being honest. Jonathan Taylor goes on the turn. Garrett Wilson, you go Puka. So you got Breece Hall and Puka.
I wasn't in this league. That's not me.
Oh, it says Junior. I'm sorry, Jordan.
That's not me.
Junior, I apologize. He goes Puka. I went Saquon, which is a good time. I'll mention in a sec. And then Pacheco goes pretty high. Typically doesn't go in the second round right now. Kieran Williams, Derrick Henry, Marvin Harrison, Drake London, and then we got Josh Allen.
as the first QB.
As the first QB in the last pick of the second round. Mm-hmm. We've talked about this. We're not taking QBs early. I don't hate it, though. His team actually ended up... David's team actually ended up pretty decent. So he gets CeeDee Lamb, and then his receivers are Devontae Smith and Devontae Adams. Running backs, Najee Harris, James Conner, Ken Walker, and then Josh Allen. What do you think of that?
I'm just looking at the team right now. I like it. I think when we're looking at what is like a best ball, this guy's going to have some weeks that are like top in the entire season as far as points.
Yeah.
There will be a week that Josh Allen, runs for 4 touchdowns and CeeDee Lamb goes for 180 yards. And, like these are the big play or the big game potential out of this team is pretty high.
Yeah. So, when you're drafting here, you're drafting for security, right? You got to cover your butt. For example, if you're taking Christian McCaffrey, you probably want to take some guys behind him who could maybe his handcuff, which he goes and does. He takes Elijah Mitchell, which is a really good thing to do. He actually takes Penix as well with the last pick because you never know what.
Why not?
Well, he takes Kirk Cousins as well. So he's handcuffing his quarterback. Because the problem in a best ball league, right, is if, for example, I went and I took Lamar Jackson and then Trevor Lawrence, and that's it. So if either of them get hurt, I'm done for. Which, they've both been hurt in the past. So...
risky.
Yeah, risky.
Some high risk, high reward. Yeah.
Looking back, my opinions on some of these guys have changed since July. I think I talked about that I had Travis Etienne as my running back 4 right now. Mm-hmm. He went as running back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I took him as running back 11. I like him more than Barkley, so I would have switched these, to be honest.
Well, you got them both. So.
But I got them both.
You wouldn't have switched them. Yeah.
Yeah, so it worked out pretty well for me, except at the time I didn't have them there. Joey in the chat says Etienne is running back 4. Yes. He's interchangeable, if I'm being honest, with Jonathan Taylor. But I do like him more than Kieran Williams, Isaiah Pacheco, Saquon Barkley.
Do you like him more than Jahmyr Gibbs? You have to if he's running back 4.
No. Bijan, Hall, Gibbs. Oh, no, Gibbs would be running back 3. Oh, I forgot. I always forget about CMC.
That Christian McCaffrey.
Because he's always just so up front, right?
He's like a whole nother tier. Yeah.
Well, I definitely like him now, especially more with the injury. But, he's right in there. Those 3, Gibbs, Etienne, and Jonathan Taylor, are right neck and neck for me.
Yeah.
So I've been leaning Etienne in these drafts, mainly because Jahmyr Gibbs still has David Montgomery, and I think people are undervaluing that. I really do. And then Jonathan Taylor and him are pretty much a toss-up. Joey says he has Brees, CMC, Bijan, Saquon, and Taylor. Having Taylor or Saquon there that high is nuts to me. I'm sorry. He's just not going to get the touchdown upside, in my opinion.
Because of the tush push.
Because of the tush push. And until it's banned...
Until it's banned. Sorry, Saquon.
That's
Saquon. 10 less touchdowns for you.
Yep. What else you got to say, Jordan?
The quarterback situation is interesting. I was looking at yours, Lamar Jackson and Trevor Lawrence, and then nothing else. I think in these best ball leagues, I love the riskier quarterback picks really late. I love Bryce Young in the second to last round.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's always good.
That is just great. Like, again, I'm not saying he's going to be great, but, like, I just love that as a...
If it hits, it's going to hit hard.
Yeah, and that's great. And that's the thing about great is that, like, the other quarterbacks are Anthony Richardson and Joe Burrow, who, if you had, like, a traditional league, you would never start Bryce Young, even if he was outperforming, Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
You would just never do that. And so in these, you can kind of take those, like, what we always talk about in redrafts. It's like you want to take those high risk, high reward, players in late rounds. And I think the best ball is the perfect opportunity to do things like that. So we talked about, obviously, those handcuffs are a lot of really great late round picks, but then other ones too that you're hoping hits. I like Darnell Mooney really late. It's like, well, do we expect a ton out of him? No, but maybe.
Maybe.
What if Kirk Cousins gets back to his form that he was before? Like Jordan Addison is the number 2 in Minnesota, was catching tons of touchdowns. Like, what if Darnell Mooney can do something like that? So normally I'm not an advocate for that, but here I'm like, well, it could happen. And so you take him in the whatever round this is, the 18th. 18th round.
Yeah.
And so I like things like that. So I think that's the fun of this league. I think this type of league and this style. And I think a lot of teams took advantage of that. They did the handcuff route, or they did that high risk, like boom or bust type thing. Yeah. Assume the best.
Assume the best, yes. I do want to point out some tight ends. So we had a lot of tight ends go relatively early. So Laporta goes in the 3rd round. We got Kelsey in the 4th. And then Kittle, Pitts, Kincaid, Andrews, McBride, all before the... What is that? The 6th round.
Yeah. All before the 6th round. That's a lot of tight ends.
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I love it.
You don't love it. We talked about waiting on tight ends. If we scroll down, we got Njoku. I think Bowers is still going higher than he should. But wait on your quarterbacks. Or, I'm sorry, your tight ends. Please do it.
I especially like it in best balls. Like, you pick 2 tight ends, and you're like, man, whatever. Like, one of them will, have 3 catches for 40 yards, and you hope they catch a touchdown. Like, you like that in those leagues. So I like Ferguson. I like Njoku. I like Dalton Schultz in the 12th. At the end of the 12th, I like so I think we're in agreement on tight ends no matter the league format.
Correct.
Unless you're in a tight end premium, I should clarify.
Unless you're in a tight end premium, yes, which we are not.
Yep.
Not at least not in this situation. Highlighting just a few more teams. Really like Danny. Danny went Tyreek Hill, got Marvin Harrison, got Tank Dell, got T. Higgins for some Brian Thomas. Tyler Lockett is a sneaky good one in best ball. We see teams that went really heavy on receivers. Nelson, Jamar Chase, Nelson, I believe it's Pancake is his team name. Jamar Chase, Nico Collins, then waits a long time and then goes high upside guys. Christian Watson, who could be a monster if he's healthy, right? Yeah, Adonai Mitchell, Mike Williams, Brandon Cooks, love him, he's the best. Adam Thielen, super late, right? So
if you did this last year and you picked Adam Thielen this time, you would be like, at the start of the season, he was catching, it was like leading in touchdowns.
Yeah, he was stupid good for a while.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. So I think best ball a lot calmer, I will say, than our auction league. It was good. I think everyone really drafted really well, which is great for drafting. Not so great for when we're trying to break it down.
Yeah, I love when people do it really poorly. But
when you do it well, doesn't give us as much to talk about. But that's okay.
Very, very balanced. Very balanced. And everyone kind of covered their bases. That's the benefit of having, obviously, so many rounds. But, everyone drafted well. Everyone covered their bases. Everyone handcuffed where I would have said they needed to. And kind of rounded out their rosters that way. It's just when you took your quarterbacks and when you waited on your tight ends and things like that are the only pieces, and that's all personal preference.
Correct.
What your preference are.
All right, guys. So there you have it. That's our best ball league. We appreciate you guys are kind of hanging around. This was kind of impromptu at 5:00 our time. We know some people are probably getting home from work who couldn't make it. So if you couldn't make it, or you're listening later, or if you want to just see the graphics while you listen, which is something that could be helpful. If you want to see the draft boards, we'll post them on our Facebook page and on our Instagram, Next Step Fantasy Football Podcast. And then I think, I started thinking and it hurt my head.
We'll stop doing that.
Well, no, I was trying to think if we're doing our auction, or going to be talking about our August league, but I don't believe we are. So, a friendly reminder that we have Patreon, patreon.com/Next Step Fantasy Football Podcast. Posted that in the YouTube, on our YouTube chat. If that's something that interests you, we're going to put out a graphic to kind of explain what that would get you during the regular season. Everyone who has it likes it, so consider helping us out. It helps us, do this. And then another friendly reminder: no other episode this week. Jordan is out of town.
Yep.
What are you doing
next week? Back at it.
What are you doing, Jordan?
Oh, I'm going up north.
Going up north.
Yep.
And then, of course, we all know our beloved Adam is in the thick of two-a-days right now.
Oh, yeah. Poor guy.
So, poor guy. He was telling me the other day, he was like, I'm not even running around, and I am so hot. So, we're still cheering for you. We're big Black River Fall fans. So until next week, and then we only got like 2 more weeks, and then it's football time.
The season is like here. Yeah,
I know. Until next week, Jordan, is there anything you want to say?
Go Packers.
Go Packers. All right, guys, take care. Be good.
to the Next Step Fantasy Football Podcast. Follow and subscribe on Facebook and YouTube at the Next Step Fantasy Football Podcast.